Thank you very much, the dear Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, for having me over here, and welcome guests. Today I'll be talking about, actually, the speech will be very much connected with money, because I think that there are very few speeches which deal with this problem. I heard Mirek, talking about the issue of money, but usually it's kind of a taboo thing, so people sort of neglected this. And at the same time, this speech will serve a brave purpose of convincing you to do something, to give up on some, which I consider to a big extent luxury. I remember once that Tomek, who is present over here, tried to convince us to give up on buying bottled water, which I have to say, after listening to his speech, I made it a rule in my home that we no longer buy bottled water, because Tomek said that I think in Poland we spend about 5 billion zlotys every single year, which is like 1/5 of this national budget for education, as far as I remember. If you can prove me wrong, So I thought, gee, this is kind of absurd to spend so much money on something which is given to us for free. In this case, I won't be trying to convince you to give up on the basics, but rather to consider whether you really need a car, a private car. If you have a company car, obviously that's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah, because all the costs are simply on the company, so you can drive as long as you wish, wherever you wish, so there are no limitations. But when you have a private car, it's a different story, because all those costs that are connected with ownership of a car, and unfortunately from year to year they keep growing, because the government, if it's short of money, what they do usually, they just look into the pockets of motorists first, yeah? Then come smokers, and those who like to have a beer from time to time, So if you have a car, you are in this unfortunate position that your expenses will gradually keep growing every single year. But to me, it didn't come naturally, because, car has been a part of my life for a very long time. And to tell you the truth, when you are single, for example, it's definitely useful, in Poland, because especially when you live in a small town, and I come from, let's say, Kielce, I consider this kind of a small town because it has small town mentality. So the car defines you, Show me your car, and I tell you who you are. So guys usually need a car to impress women, and I have to tell you the truth that I met a couple of women in my life, and if I had no car at that time, they would never ever consider dating me, because that's the mind frame which many people have in Poland. But since I'm married, and then another case, when you are married, you have 2 kids, you have a wife, so you have to move places, especially when you have a son who is about 4 months young. So that's a kind of a problem, isn't it? Yeah? So car seems to be the obvious choice. You need a car to move places. So I had a car, and until the 6th of February, as I remember, at that time, the single day I had an accident, a car accident. It wasn't my fault, but somehow I also felt that I got penalized for having this car accident, because first of all, I spent 2 months battling with my insurance company. They insured the car to, let's say, it was, I guess, 30-some thousand zlotys. But at the day of the car accident, the insurance company tells you that your car is no longer worth this money, but they can pay you about 9,000 zloty less. So you spend 2 more months, you get 4,000 zloty extra, but you should still short 5,000 zlotys to buy exactly the same model of the same year. So I thought, okay, do I really need a car? And then I started calculating how much this car really cost me, and the figure was really, shocking. Yeah, I used for this calculation on a web page. Unfortunately, this web page is Polish, so all those calculations and data, the classifications is in Polish, but I think it shouldn't be a problem. If you could help me, Mirek, and just hand out those handouts, guys, so you can spread them over there among people. So I put a rough figure, which is, let's say, 30,000 zloty, which I think it's not fireworks. You cannot buy a very decent car. You can buy, let's say, a good second-hand car, or if you want a new one, from the basic shelf, like Class C, we're talking like Skoda Fabia or Mitsubishi Colt, we're talking like minimum 40,000 zloty. So this 30,000 zloty is not something really massive. To this cost, of course, when we talk about this 30,000 zlotys, comes depreciation. So this car loses in value. Unless you buy yourself Ferrari Testarossa, this is the case, because every single year this car is getting cheaper and cheaper. On top of that, you have to change the tires, you have to pay, of course, for the petrol, which is the price, let's say, 5 zlotys per liter nowadays, and you have to change oil every 12,000 kilometers, as far as I remember. You have to have this every year a checkup, you have to go to this authorized garage, which is a rip-off, honestly, and you have to pay insurance, of course, and those little expenses like going to the car wash, paying, for example, for parking, or giving this change to those geezers who come over there and they say, "Sir, I will look after your car, give me 2 zlotys. So what can you do? You give this guy 2 zlotys, but when you just park, let's say 2 or 3 times a week, yearly it amounts to a few hundred zlotys, yeah? So the figure which I had over there, it shocked me, because it turned out that I spent roughly, like 1,500 zloty every single month, just for the pleasure of having 4 wheels, I'm no longer single, so I don't have to impress anybody. So, although we traveled to my wife's small town in Silesia region, and since this is a case in Poland that people tell you buy your car, it just blows their mind, because every single month I go over there, I just rent a car right now. And every single month I have a different car. These people think that I'm some sort of a mafia guy, or I just deal in cars or something, because they cannot classify me anymore. They don't know how much money I have, what kind of guy I am, how rich I am. But this is another case. Just get down to the point, So this is 1,500 zloty a month. And I thought, gee, if I stay in Warsaw, and I don't often go outside of Warsaw, like how many taxi rides I can have for this money, It's like I can travel to work every single day getting a taxi. So if you divided this money and you don't use your car, and this is what I calculated, if you don't do more than 15,000 kilometers a year, simply there's no point having a car in a big city like Warsaw. Because you can say, what about shopping? Of course. If you do the shopping, you have to take the car and drive to the supermarket. But I solved this problem. I no longer go shopping, I just do it online. They deliver for 10 zlotys, and I save myself 5 hours of quality time with my family, or just watching a good movie. On top of that, if I want to get out of the city, I just call my now befriended agency, and they rent me a car for 85 zloty a day. So it's 270 zloty a weekend, which is still within the budget. So think about this, guys, and I hope that one day somebody will stand over here and say, I remember this speech by Peter when he told me to sell this car, I'm so much happier now. Yeah? So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much.